Hello everybody. I would like to welcome you to our today's webinar, IT Needs a Digital Agenda, Roles, Challenges and Fields of Action of IT in the Digital Age. My name is Christina Schumann and I am the moderator of today's webinar, and I would invite you to ask questions while the webinar and afterwards to our speakers, which I will introduce you in the next slide. Our today's speakers are Anja Schneider from SAP. She is Head of Innovation and Sales. Hello, Anja.
Hi, Christina. Hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
So, good afternoon or good morning to all of the participants. As Christina already mentioned, Anja Schneider is my name. I am leading the innovation sales team in Europe, and I'm currently being responsible for driving customer-specific innovation topics or checking also adding new stuff to the portfolio from a field perspective, working with startups, and I'm currently part of the Chief Technology Officer organization, so reporting to our CTO in Europe. And to be honest, I'm now already 16 years with SAP, and so when I joined the company I thought let's see where we will take it from there, but it's really still a great place to be because it's a great discussion with all of our customers about the changing industries and how we can really spread now and win, I would say, the digital revolution. And for me it is also, maybe as a starting theme, for me it's really a kind of digital revolution rather than a transformation, and I'm happy to have that discussion then also later on with Nicole and you hopefully asking questions. Thanks a lot for having me here.
Thank you, Anja. As I mentioned before, you are very welcome to write your questions to Anja and Nicole on the right-hand side in the chat window. And it will be a very interactive session, so write your questions and they will answer it. And now I will introduce to you Nicole from PAC. Hello, Nicole.
Hello, good afternoon and good morning everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm Independent Vice President at PAC and heading PAC's Digital Enterprise Practice. And today's topic is how digital transformation is changing the role of IT and what IT needs to do, or IT departments need to do to be ready for the digital age. And actually, for many years now, we've been talking about the changing role of IT and how IT departments have to better support business. Nevertheless, many IT departments are still very much occupied with keeping their existing systems running. But in my view, digitalization is really giving a significant push to the changing role of IT and the CIO, because companies will simply not be able to survive without an innovative, forward-looking and agile IT in the future. So, but a prerequisite is that IT departments significantly transform themselves to become an enabler of innovation, and this is what we want to discuss with Anja and you, the participants of today's webinar. But before we go into the discussion, let me very quickly give you a short analyst view on how we see the current digital transformation trends and the current situation. I think we all currently feel a bit like sitting in a roller coaster. We are experiencing significant disruptions in almost any industry. As Anja said before, it's more a revolution than a transformation. And while it is not particularly new that companies have to adapt their business models to changing technologies, they had to do so since the invention of the wheel, there is one thing that we think is new, and that is the speed of change. The velocity of change is currently rising exponentially, and unfortunately most companies in our view are not very well prepared to deal with this rising rate of change. And as a result, we see many traditional brands that have been around for decades or even longer disappear from the market or be significantly challenged. You know, Kodak or Nokia are just two of the most prominent examples. They have been disrupted by the likes of Google or Facebook or Amazon or Apple, who themselves are constantly challenged by newcomers and digital champions. Take Apple, for example. They once disrupted the music market with iTunes, but now they turned from a leader to a follower with the rise of Spotify's subscription business. So what that shows us is that companies that are not able to continually transform might not be able to survive the next couple of years. At the same time, what we find is if we talk about digital transformation, there's a lot of complexity, and so we try to reduce the complexity that often comes along with the term a bit, and have identified 3 key areas where we see that digital champions continually outperform competition. And we call these the strategic imperatives in the digital age. And while this might seem overly simplified, I have found in many customer projects that it all boils down really at the end to these 3 points. The first, of course, is customer centricity. The ability to provide absolutely superior customer experience is not just a competitive factor anymore, it is necessary for survival. And that requires that we have a customer-oriented mindset, not just in marketing and sales, but really in all functional areas, and that we take a very, very holistic approach to customer experience. The second one, data intelligence or data-driven business strategies, means that we don't just use data as a key strategic resource to support decision making, but that data-based innovation really will become part of the corporate of the corporate DNA. And the third one, probably the most, in my view, the most important one, is agility and innovativeness. That you create an environment, an organization where people can react very quickly, can innovate very quickly, and are not held back by hierarchies, by long-term planning, by long-term rollout processes. Those approaches simply don't work anymore in a digital environment. But as an analyst firm, we constantly monitor the market and hear the results of a survey that we did amongst European companies. And if we look at how they react to those disruptions, yes, everybody is aware of the fact. None of the people we talked to said we haven't discussed digitization yet. But at the same time, the large majority of companies are executing, digital projects in selected areas, a bit here, a bit there, but not really under a comprehensive digital strategy. This is, I think, shows that there's not a lot of strategic approach to digitization currently. And maybe here at this point I'd like to ask Anja, do you see that when you work with your customers, Anja, do you see that as well? Or do your customers approach digitization in a more strategic way?
I think, and thanks a lot for your perspective here, and it really, I think the model is also changing. Right now it exactly reflects also our perspective. A lot of customers started with pilots and then they take it from there and then they build on top their digital strategy. I think which is also a good approach to not wait until the big sophisticated strategy is done and then come out of the room again and like during a Pope election, and then already there is a changing landscape. So I think they started very pragmatically, and I think that's also the right approach. Start somewhere, start very pragmatically with one or with several digital projects in a selected area, and then take it from there. But then you really need to have a full end-to-end vision and how this also is interlinked with your corporate strategy. And just some of our customer examples is most of them start when they have a specific need. Most of them started because they have a competitive threat. They were standing with a back to the wall and they needed something urgently to work upon. And then they thought of, okay, how we could solve that situation. And that is exactly also how, for instance, some of you already have heard of the Port of Hamburg scenario where we interconnected the entire Port of Hamburg based on sensors and have worked on the logistics within the harbor based on the Internet of Things. And because they could not grow physically even more, and so they needed to invest in an infrastructure, but not in a physical infrastructure because there was no space, so they needed to think of new ideas. And in the end, and that was the feedback from our customers, that was one of the cheapest infrastructure products ever seen. And now it feeds into an overall end-to-end digital strategy for that, for the Port of Hamburg and the Port Authority. But it started somewhere, and I think that is also the focal point. You need to start, you need to have a compelling event, you need to have something where you derive value, and then it is interlinked with your overall corporate digital strategy.
Mm-hmm. And that reflects, in my view, pretty well that, of course, starting at some point with individual projects is fine if you talk about what we call, the first step of the digital journey, which is often the front-end transformation, everything facing the customer. If you do some social media strategies or some mobile app or some interactive marketing formats, I think it is okay if you start with individual projects, but in our view, the next steps are clearly that you need to engage into a larger digital transformation journey that then comprises the entire company, and that also comprises the digitization of back-end processes and integrating them with your digital front end. This is what we call, digital integrated enterprises, the second step in the digital journey. And I think if you move along these lines, you really need a more comprehensive strategy, and it will be not sufficient if you work with small individual projects. It's an important and necessary start, but then if you move along the digital journey, it's necessary to have the broader picture. Because in our view, if we take transformation one step further, we will see the boundaries of transformation even reach beyond individual companies and beyond individual lines of business. But we will see a rising number of digital ecosystems where companies from different industry go to market with more collaborative business models. We see a lot of first examples for this in smart homes, smart cars, smart health, everything that's called smart right now. And clearly, if we move from single front-end projects over really integrating back-end and digitizing back-end and front-end over to digital ecosystems, the requirements on the strategy, but also the requirements on IT and the focus areas are shifting significantly. While if we just talk about the front-end transformation, they can maybe address by marketing or sales departments, because if we talk about multi-channel or marketing and sales analytics, that's kind of has clear boundaries. But if we talk about the next step about digital integrated enterprises, we need really integrated end-to-end solutions. We need integrated end-to-end analytics. We need cross-functional data intelligence. So this step will, in our view, put the IT department back into a poor position, because all this is simply not possible with the strong role of IT. And in our view, IT not only has to support but really drive these changes, and that holds true even more so if we move to digital ecosystems, because the requirements, for example, on data security, on infrastructure, and on integration will come to an entirely new level if we talk about, interlinking several companies and leaving the boundaries of one single entity and really moving into those ecosystems. So IT departments will be back in a very central position when we move along this digital journey, or we currently see that, but they have to change. They need to transform themselves, and that starts with, I think, IT should take the role as a coordinator of all the front-end digital projects, but they have to really be aware of what's going on in all the single individual initiatives, and they have to become much more customer-minded as well. We see some gaps here between IT and marketing still, even though we've been talking about this for a long time now. IT, in our view, is also in a very central position as a data integrator. This is where IT can play out its strength, and I think no other department will be able to take that position. But they have to invest heavily in data expertise. They have to hire data scientists. They have to prepare the necessary infrastructure for integrated and really holistic analytics. And looking at agility and innovation, it's interesting to see, we all talk about agile approaches now, agile project management, agile management, but agile approaches like Scrum, for example, have emerged from software development, from the IT domain. So we see really the chance that IT could foster and push those agile approaches much more into other areas of the enterprise, or, and other projects than simply IT projects. So yes, we see IT has to become, or will become through digitization, finally a driver of business innovation, and of course at the same time be the goalkeeper, the gatekeeper, not the goalkeeper, the gatekeeper for security, and really be the security architect. But as I said earlier, they have to transform. They have to become much more customer-oriented in their mindset. They have to exactly know, have a very good expertise in the technologies around customer experience. Don't leave that to the marketing and sales department, but really be the thought leader in everything that's going on in the front end as well. At the same time, I think IT has to become, have much more of an agile culture themselves, the IT department, be a bit more in a startup mode maybe, instead of being, just as a supporting function, but get more freedom and get more leeway and room for innovative approaches by, for example, outsourcing some of the standard IT processes. Find new forms of performance measurement within the IT department as well, new forms of KPIs. Those are just some examples of how the IT departments have to transform themselves towards more agility and innovation, rather than just supporting or running the systems. Also relates to sourcing and partnering, for example. Here IT is in a very central position to make sure that partners and especially outsourcers are also supporting agile approaches and work with them hand in hand. And the last point, I quickly touched upon that earlier, is really an integrated analytics infrastructure. Extensive analytics expertise are, in our view, the key fields of action that IT departments have to take to fill in their role as a driver of business innovations here. And yeah, let me keep it with these points and enter again into the discussion with Anja. And I would like to encourage you again, please ask your questions. We'd like to be interactive, so you can fill in your questions into this chat field here, and we will try to answer them as good as possible. Okay, maybe let's start with the area of agility and innovativeness, because that's such an important point in my view. The IT should be the pioneer and the accelerator of agile approaches and the innovation engine. Is that maybe a vision? Are we already there, Anja? What's your experience? Or is IT often still very risk-averse and maybe even the preventer of more innovative approaches? Where's the reality and where's vision in your view?
I think it is sad, but it is sometimes true from the customer perspectives and the discussions I'm leading with some of our customers, that from a perception perspective, so seen from the perspective of the line of business, IT is often seen still as a complex. They are busy with their topics. There is not much money to be spent. They are not really agile, and sometimes even seen as a prohibitor, as you already mentioned. But I think that's not fair, because the IT organization is really, in some cases, really in most of the cases, the enabler, and bringing it all together. They need to make sure that that all the processes run in the right direction, that are stable, that are secure, so that the business can run. And that for sure also needs budget and resources. So in the end, as a result of that, and sometimes also perception drives reality if the IT departments are not changing, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of IT departments already have seen it, and they would like to drive the game even more. And but in an essence, in the end, a lot of lines of business, they are just checking themselves for some quick wins from flexible, agile solutions, and in the end, they avoid speaking with the IT department. And if this is the case, at the end, this all comes together, and it increases the complexity challenge even more. And I think then I think it's a kind of vicious circle. And we should really try to avoid that kind of complexity game, because to be really crystal clear here, IT needs to be at the driver's seat of that digital revolution, and it will not work without IT. But both worlds, I think, will grow even more closer together. And especially if you think of how to look at the business processes itself, how they need to be changed, you definitely also need to have the IT on board, but you also need to have the business. So it's not a game either or, it is a game together. And I think if both parties work together, I think then you can really cope, and not only coping with the digital revolution, but also be on a steering wheel here.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we have so many good approaches coming from IT, like Scrum, for example, or I mean, DevOps is going into the same direction, bringing business and IT, bringing operations and development closer together and working together. What's your experience at SAP with Agile methods and you know, breaking up silos and bringing business and IT closer and working in a more agile way?
So we try to be here leading edge as well from our own perspective. So we are using, I would say, a combination of, for instance, lean, also from agile methods, and we are leveraging a lot of design thinking approach and talking about business model innovation ourselves. we also try from a physical perspective to break the silos also in buildings, bringing the people together, building open space offices, even if not everybody likes an open space, but it fosters the collaboration between parties, which would be from an organizational perspective completely split off. And out of those collaborations a lot of great things arise. But maybe back to the dimensions of the innovation. Basically, if we look at innovation ourselves, still we need to check the magic anchor points of, is it feasible, is it desirable, and is it in the end also, is there some money from an economic perspective, is it viable? So those are the three elements. So from a feasibility perspective, we look at lean management and agile development methodologies, including DevOps, as you already mentioned. From the desirability, we look at the perspective of the end user and check what are the requirements of the user, of the customer itself, and this is in many cases we are doing that with design thinking. So we are putting different parties from the management team, for instance, to the operations specialist or the shop floor manager into one room, one day, for instance, and then checking what is the customer of the future that that customer or that company wants to target, and then find what is that persona and what is that persona, how are they touched by the company? What is the classical customer journey if you are getting in contact with that, for instance, retail company? So what are the touch points, and then we take it from there, where to start, for instance, a prototype with a very clear approach, which can be scaled then later on as well, but we started from scratch, and then in the end, for sure, this prototype also needs to have a bigger perspective, and then we need to have a look at what would be the business model innovation based on economics. Is there any customer who would pay for that? What are the boundaries? And I think that is also the basis, those three elements, feasibility, desirability, and viability, to get more acceptance into our customer base from the SAP perspective, but also from our customer's customer perspective. So the end user is really in the center of gravity, I would say, and that is that way of working with the prototypes and that approach where we see it needs to be relevant. And maybe also breaking up the silos, that is also one approach, how we work at SAP, for instance, bringing new innovation in, for instance, with startups. Not everything will be developed on our own. In some cases, we really love to have the fresh spirit of startups and the entrepreneurship of them, and include them into the game, and then see how they could complement the portfolio, bringing value to our customers. And that is also one of the approaches we did with one of our startups. I just came back from a trip to Munich, visiting one of our first startups, a very small one at the beginning, which is now part of a reseller agreement at SAP, so they can leverage also the full SAP channel and the sales team. And in essence, also the customer gets back the support and the liability of SAP if they use their products, which is process mining by Celonis. A real cool startup, which is now also part of the innovation theme and at SAP.
You talked a lot about organization and business model and customer experience. Now, I didn't hear you talk a lot about technology. For example, infrastructure, yeah, boring things like infrastructure, but isn't an agile infrastructure also a very important requirement for an agile environment?
Absolutely. So, and normally I could talk 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours about technology and all the beauty of the technology, but I try to keep it simple today, and it is really, you're completely right. On the one hand, you need to talk about what is the business value, what you want to achieve, and on the other hand, if you have something in mind, if you have a great idea, you also need to have the right infrastructure. So basically what you need is you need to have a simple but a comprehensive data platform. This is really essential to drive that cross-silo transformation projects. And then you also need to decide, is it time critical? So would you like to have it in the cloud, for instance, to quickly show what you are talking about, and then really realize your innovation projects pretty fast, and also achieve the right acceptance from the line of business, so that they are not thinking of, okay, IT is going back and then coming after 6 months or 1 year with that product or that project which we asked for. No, it's a definition perspective, and then automatically you see the results. And just to mention some of our customers here, for instance, we have worked with Klöckner. It's a big metal distributor, and if you think of the metal industry, maybe this is not the first industry you think of digital transformation, because it's physical assets which cannot be digitalized itself. But they have thought of let's have a look at an integrated service platform for that multi-metal distribution, and they have 220 locations across different countries. And what they wanted to bring together, business and IT, to improve the logistics, but in an integrated way, not only having a front end, not only have a logistics scenario, but also integrating that with the ERP solution, with the analytics solution in BW, for instance. And that is, they started on HANA Cloud Platform. They started with the approach of design thinking. 6 weeks after they have first met on a very high level in the design thinking room one day, talking about the desires of the customer, they have a ready-to-be-run prototype, and this is now live. And I think 6 weeks after, from the idea to the realization, this only can be done in a cloud scenario, and if you have a right back end, and if you have the right data platform in place. And I think that is the way how you should drive it.
That's a great example, you know, very traditional, very German, very B2B, you know, as you said, not exactly the steel industry where you would think about innovation, but how they are using things like design thinking and other agile approaches to really revamp their business models. Great example, thanks. And maybe Christina, do we have any questions from the participants?
Yes, I do have one. What are the main obstacles of companies and IT departments who plan to undergo a digital transformation process, and how do they address these issues?
I think if I could start with answering, and Nicole, then you can also add your perspective. From my perspective, it is really at the beginning you need to start the collaboration first, because what we have seen in a lot of companies, even if you have a digital elite, I would say, and you have the IT department and you have the lines of business, to bring them all together on one table to discuss what are the projects already running, what are the topics, what are the elements we would like to achieve. You would think that this is all aligned at the beginning, but we often learned bringing them all together on one table, discussing about the needs, and then prioritizing the different projects and programs. I think that is one of the first obstacles. The second one, for sure, if you don't have the right infrastructure and you have great ideas but you don't have the right platform to start it from, it's also something that you need to have a look at. And basically then the third obstacle, but I think that's often an obstacle in mind, is, this takes so long, we cannot do this, this is so costly and stuff like that. Arguments like that, so that you even don't start to think of it and to realize it. So it is, we have a lot of topics right now where In the past, we said, okay, we can't even think of that. There is no solution to that. For instance, we are currently thinking of how we can do advanced container tracking on the ports with all the logistics chains. If, for instance, a container is on a ship and then a lot of containers disappear just on the sea, on the transport way, and nobody knows where those containers are. But it's a difficulty that you don't have the right sensors, which are so good and so great and so resistant that you can leverage them also in temperature, with high temperature, with water and salty sea and stuff like that. But I think now you need to bring the different parties together. It's sometimes not only one company who can solve it. You need to work together in a kind of business network, for instance. And then all of a sudden you can solve problems, challenges, which you thought of are not solvable at all, only from one company perspective.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Probably my answer would have been very similar. I think the first most important point is really overcoming the silos that are still there, working in multidisciplinary teams. That is something that is, especially if you have work in larger corporations, sometimes really difficult obstacle to overcome. And and then, you know, also start small, don't think about all the complexities. You should have a vision, but don't start to think about all the complexities, which often holds back significantly, but start small, prototype early, try it out, test it, and then move on from there. Very similar. And talking about overcoming silos, maybe we jump to the next area, which is customer centricity, and this is something that, you know, is often this role of managing the customer interface is primarily attributed to marketing and sales. And I have heard often, you know, IT is our supporter, but not really in the driver's seat here. So do you agree, or what's your experience, Anja, with IT and marketing finally coming together and collaborating in a better way?
It can be an explosion, but I think really, again, as already mentioned at the beginning, IT has a leading role here and needs to be in that driver's seat. But in the end, you need to have a perfect customer journey and a perfect customer experience as a central goal of all of those initiatives. And that can only be the case if you eliminate the different 120 communication and additional channels to the customer. You need to be aware of what are the different streams of communication, what is the omni-channel strategy. And in the end, a lot of our customers want to serve the segment of one. But to do that, you need to have a holistic view on the customer. And to get there, really you need to think of data consolidation, the data analysis across the different channels. And only the marketing team or only the sales team cannot cope that at all. It's also like if you think of production companies. If you want to have a lot size of one, and if you are striving towards more individualized products, this is great that you can print your shoes with your own name and your own colors and that stuff, but you need to have the processes in the background to produce in a lot size of one. And this only works if you have an integrated system, if you have an integrated and the right platform approach. And I think if that all comes together again, it is about getting rid of the organizational silos, getting rid of the data silos, and there definitely you need to have the idea on IT on board, and to have an integrated and comprehensive IT infrastructure, the right set of data consistently. And I think that only is working if you have IT and the line of business here, specifically also if we talk about marketing, the marketing team, working together as one team.
Yeah, which you already touched upon the point of data integration, very important. But maybe in the meantime, Christina, do we have any additional questions from the participants?
Oh yes, I have another question. It's about the customer interface. They ask, often the IT do not even know what everything is going on at the customer interface. How do you get more customer focus in IT, in the IT?
So I think sometimes you need to have a kind of shadowing program, I would even say. So go into the shop floor, go into the shop also as the IT department and see and learn what the people are doing there and also the challenges that are facing. So I think that is also often an approach. We have been working with customers also in a design thinking approach at a big retail company, and they came to our workshop and they said, you know, we are successful. Since 125 years we are successful because we are not using SAP. I said, okay, that's a good start. That's a good start for a big friendship. And it really turned into a friendship because then they realized right now they have a great view on single elements. But if you click on one side, on one page you have that price. If you click on the other one, you have another price. It's not consistent. It's really a data problem with the data consistency and the view on the customer. And that is only being visible and obvious if you bring the parties together. And if you take the risk to go through, for instance, the stores and look at, oh, there is this price, and then you check, okay, online there is another one, maybe that's also a kind of strategy, but sometimes you need to put yourselves into the shoes of somebody else. And I think that is also to be curious, stay curious as an IT employee or as an IT leader. And check what's going on in your business department over the network, and then I think a lot of obstacles can be overcome.
Okay, great. Let's put the IT people away from their desks and from their screens and send them into the stores and let them call the contact center and put them into the shoes of the customer. That's great, but at the same time they have this incredibly complex challenge of as you said, you know, integrating data from various sources, from various infrastructures. Isn't this a very complex task, and where can you begin? Now, you know, we have brought together the people. Now, how do you bring together the data? How do you get rid of the data silos? What are the steps that are needed, and how can SAP support the IT managers in taking those steps that are necessary?
I think basically you need to have a look at, for sure, the overall IT infrastructure. And I think you need to have a look at the transactional data, but also you need to have a look at the unstructured data. So only the look at one kind of data set, I think that was a valid point in the past, but right now in the digital age where a lot of data are starting from different data sources and from different data types in a very I would say volatile way and very fast, you need to have a broader look at the data itself. We also have a look at a lot of customers where they already started kind of big data projects and check, for instance, technologies like Hadoop, but in the end it all needs to come together again into a business process. You need to have a filter on the data, you need to find out what is relevant to the company, maybe with, for instance, data scientists, and then you need to have a solid business process where the data can be turned into action. For instance, if you look at also like out of the world of big data and sensoring data, if you look at all the different elements of the sensors, for instance, if a machine is vibrating and you see all of those different sensor elements, like temperature, is that high, you see the vibration of the machine. It's a lot of data, but I think that is not relevant to you or to the individual. What you need to know is if something is out of control or seems to be out of control pretty soon. And if you adapt here the right kind of filters and algorithms, you can concentrate on those kind of elements that really needs your attention. But then, for instance, from the machine perspective, if you look at, for instance, if you the vibration is going over a certain threshold, then you need to react. And there again you need to have the business process integration. There you need to turn the smart data, which you have already found out, into a business process. For instance, you need to have spare parts, you need to have the right service clerks, you need to have the people that can prevent that machine will break within the next 3 days, for instance. And I think to look at that entire value chain from the beginning, from big data, making them smart with the right algorithms, with the right people looking at them and finding also the algorithms and then embedding them into the real business processes, I think that is really a key element and a perspective, and maybe also driving new potential with new customer desires, I would say. And really it's important to have that data analysis, finding out what's in the system, and then also, I would say, cleansing the data and having that in real time. I would say even more real time in live, having that in a live scenario. And if you look at, we have customers out of different industries, but for instance Siemens, they have adopted our platform, our HANA Cloud platform, with their own machine data. They call it MindSphere, Siemens Cloud for Industry. It's based on SAP HANA Cloud platform, and they connect the physical production lines and the machines with the digital world and put on top services for asset management, for the connectivity, for storage of the data on top, and found a new business model to work with customers towards that set. But that is only possible if you have, again, the right infrastructure in place, if that infrastructure is capable to deal with a lot of data in real time, and if you could put on top of those kind of platforms also the right algorithms to make only visible what's really needed in the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks, Anja. We are almost out of time. Maybe we have time for a very last question. Christina, do we have another question from the participants?
Yes, I do have one last question to all attendees. Also, again, the information. If you have further questions, don't hesitate to ask us. The last question I would like to ask is about HANA and the SAP partners. It's what role do SAP partners play at data integration with HANA? Should they not become more innovative, less technology and more thinking in new business models?
I think it is the one and the other. It depends on, I would say, you need to have implementation partners which are capable of taking away any kind of obstacles from a complexity perspective. I think on the other hand, definitely you also need to have the partners in crime which help you to identify and have that business talk with the customers on what would be the next solution, what is the case, because no customer will ever invest in just a technological perspective. You need to have a business case behind, you need to have a business value discussion, and then also I think that the technology, for instance, from our perspective, we can solve any kind of problem with the in-memory platform of SAP HANA. But it's really important what are the elements, what is the business value, what are the challenges the customers are facing, and then we can solve any kind of problem, any kind of challenge, And I think the partner ecosystem really has a vital and a focal importance here in that discussion of digital transformation, because they are close to the needs of the customer, and they can also enrich their portfolio with new elements, new solutions on top of HANA. Like I already mentioned, for instance, with the startup, which with Celonis, which put on top of the HANA platform their own ideas, their own thinking, and they just have a look at what are the processes running in the system, how they are implemented, and if they are implemented that way, just check the flow. How many of those, for instance, purchase orders are run through the system in the classical way, and how many deviations are there, and what is the throughput time of that process, and what are the costs behind, and who is causing which costs, for instance. And I think those are elements also the partners can drive a vital role, building on top of the platform new ideas, new portfolio elements, new helping solutions to the customers which are relevant from a business perspective. And Celonis is only one example, which really is a comprehensive play to the SAP portfolio, and there are a lot of more partners which already leverage that opportunity, being on top of the HANA platform, investing into the capabilities of the in-memory technology, and then take it from there and build the missing components, I would say, but to the value of the customer.
So new business model opportunities for existing SAP partners, but also for new SAP partners like startups that are going into that direction, and help companies that might not have their own data expertise or business model expertise as far as necessary, and really turn to the outside world and not try to do everything by yourself. Thanks, Anja. That was a really, really interesting discussion. Unfortunately, we are almost out of time. Maybe 3 points summarizing what I took from our discussion. Key point was we need to get rid of silos, and silos with respect to people with lines of business. We need more collaboration. People have to sit together in a very early stage, collaborate very, very actively, because we need different perspectives for innovation and for really addressing customer experience or the customer in a really holistic way. But not only people silos, but also data silos, very important. And of course, when we talk about data silos, we need the right infrastructure, we need the right technologies to integrate data from various sources. Another point that I took is with all the complexity ahead of you, you sometimes have to start small, you have to test, you iterate, you grow from there, and that shows you a lot of new possibilities, how to transform step by step and really become, a disruptor or become a leader in your industry, as the example of Klöckner, for example, showed. And given you have all ways to take the customer perspective, this is the last point that I took from our discussion, because taking the customer perspective is absolutely key in everything you do. Anything you would like to add, Anja, that I didn't summarize?
No, perfect summary and perfect conclusion. So I just want to open maybe also the possibility to anybody who just have not had the chance to ask questions. So you could also contact us anytime you would like to have more details and insights.
Yeah, we have our contact data at the end of the slides. You will all receive the slides as a participant, but I would also like to point your attention to some further reading. We have a white paper on the IT's digital agenda, and we have a blog post, and I think a lot of the points that we talked about are summarized in a nice way in those 2 readings. And also, as Anja said, please feel free to contact us if you have any further questions in the aftermath. We'll be happy to get back to you. So, thank you very much for your attention. I hope we could give you some new ideas, some inspiration for your own digital transformation and for the transformation of the IT department. Thanks a lot from my side, and I hope you have a very nice day, and talk to you soon, I hope.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Thank you very much, Anja. To all attendees, in the next days you also will receive the link where you can download the slides of the webinar and also watch the recording. And yeah, again, also thank you much for your attention and have a great day. Okay, see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.